Hello, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. It's me, Big Mike, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Coffee with Big Mike, the series where I sit down for a chat with some rather interesting and amazing people over a nice cup of coffee. Joining me again today is Lawrence, a member of the development team behind Let's Kill Hitler, the game. Welcome back, Lawrence.
Hey, Mike. Pleasure to be with you again.
So, how's it going today, fam?
It's a nice beginning of the day. I'm very, very happy to have the privilege of having another morning coffee with you.
So, if you guys didn't catch our last video, and in our last video, we had a nice little introductory chat about Let's Kill Hitler, the game. A game that's built on some very amazing technology. And today, we're going to be looking under the hood at that amazing technology. So today's conversation is going to be all about that. So I want to ask Lawrence, for the sake of my audience, can you tell us a little bit about your background in this subject?
Yeah, sure. So we are doing, as a company, what people call AI, artificial intelligence, and we will have the opportunity during our chat, I believe, to debunk what is really behind this AI stuff. But for the sake of the conversation at this stage, let's call it artificial intelligence. So we've been in this field like 30 years for some of us. Personally, I've been in this field for 25 years because it's a very, very, very ancient domain, actually, contrary to what most people believe. This was not born yesterday. This was actually born in 1956. So there is a little bit of a long history of AI. We come from a business background, meaning that we've been leading AI projects or equivalent thereof for companies and governments alike for over 2 decades. And we decided to, because we are gamers, we decided to move into the gaming industry, but with all the experience and different look on things, which our business background is bringing.
AI, as we mentioned in our previous conversation, is often misunderstood. Could you tell our audience a bit about the history of AI?
Yeah, sure. So basically, what happened is in the summer of 1956, a math teacher from the University of Dartmouth decided to organize a summer camp with a couple of other mathematicians. So there was one guy from the Harvard University, one guy that was at IBM, and another one was at Bell. And together with a couple of students and researchers, they coined the term artificial intelligence to describe the field of application in which they were working, which has been actually most probably the most ill-picked name you can have for a technology, and which is creating a lot of misunderstandings. So basically, at that time, the guy said, well, we managed to model the way a neuron in your brain is working. Okay. So the way a neuron in your brain is working is through the circulation of electricity. Okay. And it's not like a switch, so it's not an on-off position. It's more like a potentiometer. So you push a certain quantity of electricity from a value of 0, no electricity, to 1, the maximum level of electricity that your neuron can carry. And so it's anywhere between this. Okay, between this 0 and this 1, whereas your switch would be 0 or 1. And it was kind of a unique approach because transistors within a CPU, they are 0 or 1. Okay, and they say, well, we manage from a mathematical standpoint to model this the way a neuron is working. We think that we can apply it using a series of transistors, and so we can have a machine tomorrow that will work like a neuron. And actually, we can have several neurons as a network. And if we can have several neurons as a network, then we can simulate the structure of a brain, human brain. And if we can simulate the structure of a human brain, then we can simulate intelligence. So voila, the machine, the artificial being can be intelligent, and here comes artificial intelligence. Okay, so these are the premises. So basically, what does this neuron is doing? It's taking an input and it's generating an output. Okay, so it's connecting one input with one output. A neural network is going to be able to take all possible inputs, so sources of data, and to connect them to all possible outputs, meaning other data which are resulting or which are, there is a causality between the presence of some input data and output data, and it's able to create all the possible combinations between this input and output. It didn't went very well. It didn't had practical applications because, as we will see during the rest of our discussion, in order to be able to use these systems, you need to have a lot of data. And don't forget that for very, very long, managing a large number of data, which is digitalized, was not exactly something that was easy. The cost of storage of the data was extremely heavy. The cost of processing of data, basically memory to be able to load data into your system, was extremely heavy, and there was not a lot of digitalized data. Okay? So everything changed with the advent of internet, which brought data into the swashes of data and made them available to the systems. But what happened between 1956 and the internet years, so nearly 40 years, was nothing in this field. Okay, nothing, because not enough data. Instead of this, a different type of artificial intelligence was developed, which was rule-based. Okay? So basically here the idea was to say, well, we can devise systems in which we are able to start from a given situation, so a given set of data again, and we are going to be able to use set of rules in order to generate a result. Or what we're going to be able to do is to take specific data starting situation, let's say, and a resulting situation. And from there, we're going to be able to infer the rules of transformation. Okay, what rules are applied, what rules do exist, which match your inputs with your outputs. And these systems were called expert systems. Okay, and this is contrary to artificial intelligence, contrary to neural network, even a much more accurate term. So you have systems which are experts into doing something, and I'm going to give you an example. You heard probably about Garry Kasparov, who was the champion of chess at the time, worldwide champion of chess, being beaten by an IBM machine which was called Deep Blue. So Deep Blue was an expert system. Okay, Deep Blue was an expert system, and this was the first time that a machine was beating the worldwide champion of chess into playing chess. The rules of chess are known, so this was the rule engine, the rule set. You've got a possible number of moves in chess, which is 10 at the power of 49. Okay, so it's it's a huge number for a human being. It's a relatively small number for a machine. At that time, of course, it was much bigger than what it is today, and Deep Blue was a very big machine. But this is a moment where basically the computers were powerful enough to be able to store the rules of chess and store the possible moves. Okay, so if you know all the moves, possible moves, and you know the rules, then you know how to get in an optimized way from a current position to a winning position. Okay, so that doesn't make, I think that you will agree, that doesn't make such a system intelligent in the way human beings understand intelligence. It makes a champion of chess. It makes an unbeatable machine. Garry Kasparov was probably thinking like 20 moves ahead. I personally start to suffer more than 2 moves ahead. Okay. So that's a very big difference between Garry Kasparov and me and most of mankind. But definitely 10 power 49 moves away is beyond the capacity of a human mind. Okay. It's not a matter of real capacity. It's just a matter of the time that we need to be able to compute all the moves. Our brain is just not powerful enough to do this kind of computation in a reasonable time, whereas a machine can be programmed in order to do this kind of computation in a very, very short time. Okay? So this is a second type of artificial intelligence. You got rules, which can be extremely complex. You got situations which can be extremely complex, and you can apply rules to situation, or you can infer rules of a universe system based upon a starting situation and resulting situations. Okay? So during a period that is, let's say, 1960s to late early 2000s, expert systems are going to be the only form of AI that you're going to find. Okay, they are used everywhere, business, government, whatever. Gaming. Okay, if you take actually, game industry has been a huge user of AI. You take you take an FPS, any kind of the little people the little NPCs you are shooting at and who are shooting back at you, they are AI. Okay, they are expert systems. They are experts in fighting you. Okay, they are experts in returning fire, hiding, and they're going to be, depending upon the quantity of work which is put into defining the rules, they're going to be able to react to your presence, react to your actions, and this is going to determine a number of their actions. Okay, so that's the perfect example of what is this kind of AI. They have been with us gamers like forever. Okay, since the inception of the first PC games up until now, you've got this rule-based artificial intelligence which are present in the gaming industry. So there is nothing new under the sun here. Okay, what changes is when comes the internet age, because now with the internet, you have access to a very large quantity of data. And now your neural network based artificial intelligence, you're going to be able to feed it. You're going to have this data, which is indispensable so that it can perform its tasks. And one of the first applications there was in the late 90s with cats. recognition. This has really been one of the first practical applications of this. It turns out that one of the most popular contents that you can find on the image content that you can find on the internet is cats. And that pictures of cats, people love to take pictures of their cats, post these pictures, and they love also to write comments, what we call in artificial intelligence, the artificial intelligence community is called label. They label their data. So they are saying, well, this is my Siamese cat, 2 years old. Oh, this is Alvin, my black and white cat, male, 5 years. This is. So you have a lot of images and you have a lot of characterization of these images. And that's super because now you are able to feed this into your neural network and you're able to say, well, I'm going to give you 100,000 cats because it's basically the number of images that was needed at the time this experiment happened. So I'm giving you 100,000 cats with the labels, and I'm telling you these are cats. These are cats of different types, and I'm going to ask you now, when I'm going to show you a new image, to tell me if it's a cat or if it's not a cat. Okay? And I'm going to be able to feed you a very large number of additional images, and you will discriminate whether or not these are cats. This is your job. And it turned out that this thing was doing its job very well. It was doing it at 98% precision. This means that in 2% of the cases of the images that were presented to it, it did not recognize a cat while it was here on the picture. And the reason why is that these images were with a lot of darkness, shadow, not good light on it. And the source of data that was used when you are taking a picture of your cat and you want to post it on the internet and you want to say, whoa, this is my cat, you don't shoot your cat in the dark. You take a very nice light to show the whole feline beauty of your companion. So when the neural network was prompted with dark images, it just could not recognize it because it didn't add the references. And please mark my word on that. Keep this in your mind, okay? It could not match the cats that were in the dark because it had not seen cats in the dark before. And for him, a cat that was in the dark was not a cat. So it took 100,000 cats images so that a computer could recognize an image of a cat when it was shown an image of a cat. If you take a human being, the number of images so that a 2-year-old kid is able to know what is a cat, 100% of the time, is 2. A kid that sees a cat 2 times, and whether it's in the dark or not, is going to be able to recognize all the future cats that he meets, whether or not they are in the dark, with 100% recognition rate. Okay? And again, keep that in mind. Okay? So neural network needs a lot of data to feed on in order to provide a good efficiency. The more data you feed to it, the more efficient it becomes. Okay? But its performances are paling in comparison of what we would call human intelligence, our ability to recognize a cat. While rule-based models, okay, which are the second type of artificial intelligence, they are actually able to be much more performing than us. This is Deep Blue beating Gary Kasparov. All right? Does it make sense so far?
So far, it makes complete sense.
Okay. So now comes a couple of other pieces of this story. We're going to jump in time. So starting the 2000s, you still got the expert systems. You still find them in gaming. You find them in some areas in the industry, but more and more and more, the artificial intelligence community is turning to these neural networks. Okay, they become kind of the Graal the Holy Grail, finding the ultimate artificial intelligence, which is able to, again, let's go back to 1956 blueprint, okay, which is able to simulate, to act, not to simulate, but to act exactly like a human brain. And because acting exactly like a human brain is the premise to be intelligent like a human. Well, it's a false premise, as we will see, okay? But the Holy Grail is, let's have a computer which is as intelligent as a human as we understand you and I intelligence. Let's see what is going to happen in 2016. We got two interesting things coming up. Now, this time it's a machine of Google, which is called DeepMind, who is going to beat the worldwide champion of Go. Okay? Go is a very, very different animal as a game compared to chess, because we don't know how many moves there are in Go. Nobody knows. You ask to mathematicians how many possible moves there are in Go. Estimations, and these are estimations, they range between 10 at the power of 200 to 10 at the power of 600.
Ooh.
That makes a level of uncertainty which is quite high, okay? And this time, Google DeepMind is going to beat the worldwide champion of Go, who is a Korean, aged like 18 years. And it's going to do this with the equivalent of 2,000 processors in the machine. 2,000 processors. To give you an idea of the electric consumption of a human brain, the electric consumption of a human brain is about 20 watts. DeepMind was about 440 kilowatts.
Oh.
But still, it did beat the Go champion. Okay? And this time, DeepMind was not using a rule-based, logical, I would call it logical, okay? And the neural network, from then on, I'm going to call them statistical. So we understand, okay? I got rules, I'm based upon logic. I got a neural network, I'm based upon a statistical analysis of data, okay? So this was the first time that a statistical intelligence was beating somebody, and such a complex game, okay? You understand that when you don't know the number of moves that you have, you cannot implement a rule-based system. That's
right.
very simple, all right? So this is the reason why you don't go logical. You could go logical on chess because all the moves are known, right? But here, you cannot go logical on Go, so you're going statistical. And this is the use of this technology, one of the reasons to use this technology. Now, this technology has got a little problem, which is going to happen also in 2016. As we've seen, it's basing its intelligence, let's call it like this, on data that is fed to. This is people in your audience probably have heard of training an AI. We spend the time to say, well, we need to train the AIs, you know? Training is basically feeding the cats with their labels to the machine so it can recognize a cat. Okay. Now, it would not be such a big thing if it was only recognizing cats. So people have been trying to do other things and to make it recognize other type of data. So remember, data is the piece of data itself, okay? What you want the neural network to analyze, and a label. Why a label is necessary? It's because your neural network has got no idea what is a cat, doesn't know what is a cat, it doesn't understand what is a cat. So you got to tell it, well, this is a cat, okay? It doesn't understand the color. It doesn't understand what is black and what is white. You got to tell it, this is black. And you got to tell it 100,000 times, this is black. So he mimics the fact that he understands black. So he says, okay, if I see an image which looks like this, then it's a cat. If I see a color which looks like this, then it's black. Okay? And in 2016, Microsoft released a chatbot they were very proud of on Twitter. The idea was to use Twitter in order to see how their chatbot could be brilliant at interacting with people. The name of the thing was called Tay, Tay. People want to Google it. Its lifetime on Twitter was 16 hours. Microsoft had to unplug the thing because in 16 hours it had become the most racist, misogynist, offensive person you could find on Twitter. And they unplugged the thing. It was having a very, very big affection for the N word, and it was just spewing racial slur at every sentence. And the reason was the following. When you design a chatbot, you basically have a first thing, which is some kind of potentiometer, okay, which is determining the level of adaptability of your chatbot to the audience. So level 0 is a complete lack of reaction to the way people are behaving to it with your chatbots, okay? And level 1, maximum level, would be complete empathy, okay? Complete mimicking of the way people are interacting with you, the chatbot. And it turned out that they had decided to push the potentiometer a little bit too high. So everybody knows that on Twitter, very often, most of the cases, after 2 interactions, people are starting to argue with each other. And actually, the chatbot was doing what he was seeing people do on Twitter, which was arguing. So he was taking a very, very aggressive stance from the start. This could have been solved quite easily. The problem was in the training, the education of the virtual being that was this artificial intelligence, because chatbot is a form of artificial intelligence. And it turned out that, contrary to cats that you can find everywhere on the internet, finding dialogues is something that is extremely complicated. Okay? Finding coherent dialogues which are long enough between two people, two given persons, and which are long enough to be analyzed from a statistical standpoint, they are super hard to find. And companies have been developing what we call big data companies. Okay, there are some companies who have developed databases of dialogues, and one of them is called, probably the most famous, is called Switchboard, which is having millions of dialogues which are labeled, okay, which have been transcribed. And the poor guy at Microsoft who was given the job to train Microsoft went to Switchboard, and well, when you got millions of possible records, what do you take? The big chance that you're going to take the first one that is available in the list, and the first one was Alabama State 1950s dialogue, which was not exactly the most progressive and politically correct source of dialogues that you could find. So let's say that Microsoft was starting with a serious racial bias, okay, in its training, and it turned out that it was this plus the combination with aggressivity made it that he became the most racist individual on Twitter for his short life of 16 hours. Okay, so this was 2016, and now we're going to jump to today, where again another form of I'm going to make a generalization here because getting really under the hood is a bit too complex, but another form of statistical intelligence is becoming what people believe is AI. It's ChatGPT, okay, Skynet. And ChatGPT is what is called a large language model. What's people in AI have been trying to do since the very early beginning, actually, is to, again, in this objective, to simulate a human behavior. Well, one of the characteristics of human being is language. Okay, and the idea was to interact with the machine in natural language, which means that you need to give a way to the machine to understand language. And you need the ability to give to the machine knowledge so it can provide you with answers. And that has been a very, very big field. So these large language models, they are one specific form of statistical intelligence. Okay, it looks very futuristic, but it's not. If you remember Nokia, the telephone company, back in the 90s, when people started to have cell phones, it's released, I think that it was the first one to release a large language model. It was the T9 text completer on your SMS interface. You start typing a word and it's prompting you with a selection of possible words. Okay? Well, basically, a large language model is, and again, I'm generalizing a bit, okay? It's not exactly only this, but globally, this is something which is able to say, well, because you've been typing the beginning of this phrase, then the next word which begins by P is this. Okay? T9 was doing it with one word in your cell phone in the late 1990s. Today, ChatGPT is doing it with their current version. I think it's 2048 words. So it's basically giving you a prompt that is going to be up to 2048 words. But it's completing your sentence, which is your prompt, okay, with the exact same logic and technique. It's trying to understand what you've been telling it in order to forecast what should be the continuation of your conversation. All right? So this is basically the state of the art and the history, a little bit of background history on what is AI. All of these forms that have been described have been called artificial intelligence. As you see, they are quite different from each another. Okay? And within each style and type of AI, you've got subdivisions, let's say, but we're not going to enter into that because it's a bit too long and complex. But you got subdivisions, so you got special flavors, let's say, of using a statistical or a rule-based or a large language model, which is somewhat of a hybrid, let's say. Does that answer your question so far?
Absolutely, absolutely. And just a couple things I want to point out here. First, I just want to say I had no idea. I never even, imagined that T9 was a language model like that. I never even, thought about it like that. So I had learned something new here today. And
yeah, I'm not saying that it's, pardon, Mike. I like to avoid the imprecisions of that, on that. No, T9 was not a large language model as we understand what is a large language model today, but it had exactly the same behavior. Okay?
I see.
It provided, it was not working using the same, it didn't have a neural network on board. Okay? It didn't add a neural network on board. It was operating its statistic determination in a different way. But it's just a tool that is changing. Okay, the process is exactly the same.
No,
you understand? These things are. Sorry, Mike. One thing that I want to point out to the audience: the problem with the IT industry. And this is in all fields, okay, not only AI. Marketing people in the IT industry, they love to take old concepts and put a new tag on it because it's allowing to create again hype. And this is basically allowing you to sell old soup at the price of today's plat du jour, okay? Today's dish. So you are just rebranding things. The concept themselves. Of course, this is evolving because computing capacities of the machines is evolving. Okay, efficiency of writing code is evolving. A number of things are evolving. The base process, they are known like since ages for AI, 1956. Okay, 1956. ChatGPT is not a new technology which is born yesterday. ChatGPT core technology was born in 1956, and it didn't change since 1956. Nothing new under the sun. Okay. What has changed is the ability of this technology to manipulate a larger set of data, both in inputs and in outputs. But this is not the technology that changed. It's the underlying machine, the computer capability which changed. Sorry to have interrupted.
Oh, no worries, no worries. I just want to ask before we continue on even further. I know you've explained AI and a couple of other terms, but are there any other terms here that you think are worth mentioning and are worth explaining that would be important later on in this discussion?
Yeah, one term that I would elaborate on is actually what is called machine learning. Okay, machine learning is the process by which your AI is evolving. Okay, this is very important to understand. What might be the difference between your Nokia T9 and ChatGPT is the ability of the system to evolve, to change itself. T9 was not changing itself, okay? T9 was given a set of rules, processes to which it needed to abide, okay? The modern AIs, they are able to change, to adapt to situations. I want your audience to take this with a pinch of salt. And I want to precise what I mean by evolution and change. This does not mean at all that these machines are evolving as we do as humans. This doesn't mean that they change as we do as humans, just like it doesn't mean that they are intelligent like we are intelligent. Artificial intelligence, again, is the most ill-coined buzzword of the history of technology. Okay? Should never have been called that. Machine learning is the way the system is going to adapt to what it learns. Okay? So when it's trained, the more data you feed into the system, the more it's going to become efficient. And why? Because at the beginning, it's super stupid. Okay? I'm going to ask to you and your audience to close your eyes and imagine your brain, okay, with this little neuron. So imagine a network of filaments which are going from a point A to a point B, okay, which are interconnecting together from time to time, collaborating to perform tasks for processing information. This is what is inside your artificial intelligence, okay? The equivalent of this. This is something where basically the machine doesn't understand the nature of the inputs that it's receiving. It doesn't understand the meaning of the outputs that are corresponding to these inputs. It just knows that there is, when you flick the switch on A, then lamp number 1 is turning on, okay? It's able to analyze this. It's able to create causality relationship. There is a cause, there is an effect. And is able to understand his world. The more data you give it, the more it's able to say, oh, I'm having a larger number of causes that I can analyze, and I'm able to see a larger number of effects, and I'm able to infer relationships, much more relationships, because you give me more data, okay? Inputs and outputs. So it's making a statistical analysis, okay? This is the evolution. This is the learning. This is what means changing. Changing just means that it says, oh, because I've got this data, then what I thought would be a relevant causality relationship between two elements turns out to be wrong. And what I didn't see as previously as a causality effect between two elements, input and output, is actually existing. Let's, if you want, make a very simple little game, you and I. Okay? Imagine that you are in a room, and in this room there are two lamps. Okay? And you got two switches. Let's determine together which are the possible relationships between the switches and the lamps. I can have the following effect. If, let's assume that for the moment the two lamps are shut down, okay? And the two switches are in position 0. So nothing is happening here. What I can do is I can have my switch A, which is turning lamp 1. I can have my switch A, which is turning lamp 2. I can have my switch A, which is turning lamp 1 and 2. And I can have my switch A, which is doing nothing. Okay? So I've got 4 possibilities here. And I've got 4 possibilities of actions for my second switch. Okay? The same ones. So I've created a situation in which each of my switch is going to have 4 possible impacts on the environment. 1 input equals 4 outputs. This is for each switch taken separately, okay? And now I've got another 8 possibilities, so I got total 16 possibilities, which is the relative positions of my 2 switches, okay? They are not working separately, they're working together. So you got 16 possibilities, and this means that you would need to take a look at each of these 16 scenarios to deduct the rule of functioning of your switches. Okay? This is exactly what it does. You and I can do this, okay? Being human beings, it will take us a little time, but we can do it with a reasonable number of switches and lamps. Your artificial intelligence is going to be able to do this with a very large number of switches and lamps. Okay? And it's going to be able, the more it sees new switches, the more it is going to be able to understand how this is working. Okay? Because now, if I'm telling you, yeah, but from time to time, actually, when I'm turning, let's say that's the first switch is turning out the 2 lamps, but it's doing it 90% of the time. And 5% of the time, which I've been able to observe as a human being, well, it doesn't do nothing. And 5% of the time, it turns out only lamp number 1. This means that there is certainly something out there which is changing the behavior of my switch. But I don't know it, okay? I've not been able to observe what is changing the behavior of my switch. So I'm going to need to take a look to the electrical installation in order to see what is happening, okay? And it's going to take me a lot of time to do this. The machine will be able to do it faster. So it will be able to say, oh, now I understand why I've got only 90% of positive results on my base scenario. It's because there is another switch in another room, and from time to time, when this is turned on or off, this is changing the behavior off. Okay? So the machine is going to be able to change just like you are able to do. Okay? You're able to change your wiring, okay? To change your understanding of the situation, to change the rules that you are inferring from the data by analyzing. So this is evolution. This is a learning of part of the AI. This is what we are trying to do as community in the AI industry, the big focus is on machine learning with the ability for the machine to learn to improve itself. Okay, and you probably heard that the machine was able to generate code to evolve. Okay, it's been told about ChatGPT. For an example, now it's able to self-evolve, but to generate code in order to improve its capacities. Well, yes and no. Okay, yes and no. Machines are not able to create new stuff. Create in the meaning that you and I understand creation. And this is leading us to the last term that I want to explain, because we're going to use it also, which is generative AI. Everybody's hearing about generative AI, where the machine is creating, in the mind of people, it's creating new stuff. Generative is the proper term. Creation is not, because as we will see, there are two completely different processes. Okay? And yeah, for one time, generative AI is the proper term to use, not creation. Okay? No machine can think the way we as human beings think. They think different. Okay? To put it in very brutal terms, and pardon the language, a computer of any kind doesn't understand fuck all to anything. You've got to explain everything. Again, back to the cat's analogy, you got to explain 100,000 times to a computer what is a cat. And he will be able to recognize a cat not 100% of the time. You got to explain to your 2 years old 2 times what is a cat. And he will recognize cats for the rest of his life 100% of the time. Okay? So machines are unable to evolve by devising by themselves what is necessary for them to evolve. What they do is, what they're perfectly able to, is to say, oh, I need a new function that is allowing me to do that. And I'm going to take this function from a pre-existing source, or most probably not from one pre-existing source, but from a combination of pre-existing sources. Machines are able to generate new functions. If they are not new, they are able to add a function to their ability, to their original set of functions. If it is deemed necessary, which can be deemed not by them alone, but because a rule which has been made by a human is authorizing them to do so, or inciting them to do so. Okay? And not authorizing is not the problem. Inciting them to do so. If you are becoming limited and you cannot answer all the questions which are asked to you, then extend your set of data by exploring a new source. And if you cannot explore the new source because you lack the routine which is allowing you to connect to such source, then build the routine. Of course, the routine is going to be pre-existing somewhere under some form. They are unable to think from scratch. They don't create, they generate. A machine cannot invent the wheel. A machine cannot say, I need a round stuff because this would be useful. Why? Because it doesn't understand round and it doesn't understand useful. It doesn't know. When I'm telling you this is round, this is a circle, you understand that this is a circle. Because you've been seeing a circle 2 times in your life. The machine has got to assert whether or not statistically there is a chance that what it sees resembles with a high level of probability to what it has been shown 100,000 times as being a circle. It doesn't know what is a circle. You know, as we understand as human beings, you know what is a circle. And you know that, yeah, that might be useful. What do you understand by useful? You and I know what we understand by useful. Explaining what is useful to the machine is going to be super complicated. Okay? So machines don't create, they generate from pre-existing stuff, meaning stuff which has been created by a human being. Well, and no, they don't do it by themselves. They do it because inside of it, there has been, during their programming, a rule which told them, well, you have to improve. They don't decide to improve by themselves. We human beings do. That answers your question?
It does. I want to ask though, while we're still on this introductory part, most of my listeners out there, probably all of my listeners, they've heard of ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. So if you were to compare the AI like that behind Let's Kill Hitler the game to, say, ChatGPT, how would it compare?
Like an apple and an orange. Okay. It's a fruit. It's an AI, but it's completely different from what ChatGPT is doing. And I'm sorry, I'm going to do a little bit of ChatGPT bashing. This has nothing to do against the technology itself. Actually, the technology behind ChatGPT is impressive. It's super good. But I can quote you a dozen other models which are equally good, some of them open source. Okay? Because again, ChatGPT is a large language model. It's impressive because of the sheer size of the data that it's able to forecast. Okay? Its output size is impressive. It's the evolution, again, from one word on your T9 to 2048 words. I mean, 2048 words start coherent words, okay? Starts to be a pretty decent chunk of text, okay? It starts to be definitely the ability for the machine to answer you in a coherent manner, even to the most complex type of questions, right? So yes, they're able to do this. They do it fast. They do it with a high level of accuracy, which is not 100% way, but is what is considered as a high level of accuracy and credibility. And I'll come back to credibility after that. So they're super good at what they are doing. The problem is I'm not saying they're selling, they're not actively selling, but nobody at ChatGPT came out when the rumors that it would be Skynet, that it would be eating the world, that it was able to predict stocks evolution, that it was able, on Twitter, I don't know if your feed looks like mine, but I regularly receive stuff which is saying, optimize your investments using ChatGPT. The fact that such a hype has been developing around the tech, which is completely unable to do this, and I'm going to elaborate on it. The fact that they're still letting people to believe that this thing is the alpha and omega of artificial intelligence is a crime. What they will do, I'm ready to bet with you that ChatGPT is the next FTX. It's going to be for AI what FTX has been for crypto. There has been a lot of what we called AI winters during the history of AI. Moments where AI was left alone completely, nobody was working on it. Okay? We came with the technology that is behind Let's Kill Hitler to years ago. Nobody wanted to hear about us. Today, we are pitching VCs on a weekly basis. Everybody wants AI. And the first question is, okay, how do you compare to ChatGPT? Well, I need to explain you what an AI is before, because you don't know what is an AI. You think it's ChatGPT. And you think that ChatGPT is able to do things that it will never be able to do. I'm going to tell you about my first contact with ChatGPT. I was visiting a friend, and the guy is not super educated. He's very curious about tech, okay? But doesn't have the education that goes with it. And looks at me and say, you're in AI. I know that you are in AI. And did you see what this thing is doing? And the guy had managed to secure, this was the early days when you needed to be on pre-approved before you could use the stuff. And he had one of these accesses and say, look, this is incredible. I'm talking with this thing. It's answering to me and blah, 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 blah. And it's able to generate code. And okay. So I'm using a common resolution of a mathematical problem, which has basically one proper, generally accepted way of solving things. Right? And it's a very popular one. So I'm asking ChatGPT the question. Say, please write me some code in Java language, which is doing this. And I see effectively ChatGPT, which is writing some code. And what is not surprising is the code, because there's very limited possible variation on that. Okay? What is most surprising is it comes with comments. And I just sat down and said, wow, the thing has been commenting. And I'm talking to you about the period where ChatGPT was really a complete black box, okay? Nobody knew what you had to dig in order to understand what was behind. Sitting and say, wow, the thing is commenting its writing. So it knows what it does. Wow. Knows, like knowing, like you and I understand knowing. And actually, no, it was super normal that it was commenting out the code, because it was making a copy paste of one or several sources combined, and it was taking the comments that the human developer from which it was taking its source had inserted into its code. Because yes, the human developer knew what he was doing. ChatGPT does not. ChatGPT is a giant, super evolved copy-paste machine, to put things in a nutshell and with a lot of shortcuts, okay? But it's a giant copy-paste machine. And these guys at ChatGPT are letting people imagine that it can be something else. And when this is going to blow, this is going to be a fatal blow again to the industry. Normal AI industry, the people who have been in expert systems since 30 years, okay? The people who are trying to innovate in machine learning, because people will say, well, AI is a fraud. It's not doing what it was promised. And in addition, because they let the hype go so high, the other part is people think that it's Skynet. So now you see things like regulation in AI. We have this in the European Union now. It's coming. It's going to be coming in states, regulating AI. What you can do or not. Sorry, this is not Skynet. This thing is not thinking by itself. You don't have to limit the ability of people to develop AIs because these things would take over the world. They don't know what is the world. They have no clue. They, again, to use my very rude sentence, they don't understand fuck all to nothing. You got to explain them. So the way you explain them, the way you are telling them to use their knowledge of the world might be a problem. But the tech by itself will not wake up tomorrow morning saying, I'm going to take over the world. Just like it will not wake up tomorrow morning understanding what is a cat. Doesn't know what is a cat. He knows what is the image of a cat. Does that understand you? Does that answer your question?
It does. I want to ask though. I'm not sure if you're able to answer this or not. Are you able to talk about the where and the when, the specific technology behind Let's Kill Hitler the game originated?
1956. And the 60s. We don't have, Mike, I because I don't like the, we already had this discussion on the fact that we don't like as a company, the hype, and we are not selling on hype. Okay? We are not hoaxing people, and we don't want to hoax people into believing that we've got a unique technology. What we have is, let's say, a unique approach to the use of technologies which, again, have been here since 1956. Nothing new under the sun. Okay? We just have a unique approach, and a unique approach when it comes to the gaming industry. Because you remember that I told you that rule-based system, expert systems, were here in the gaming industry like since forever, starting by combat AI. Okay? So what is not here is statistical data, statistical AI. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why it cannot be here. And it's super stupid to think that it can be here. So devs out there, except some very, 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 very rare cases, which I'm going to elaborate on, don't use ChatGPT to create your games. Won't work. And I'm going to elaborate on this. We are a rule-based system because there is no possibility to use a statistical system in game for reasons I'm going to develop. But what we did was to have an approach to say, let's build our rule-based system in a way which approaches the statistical approach, okay, with, let's say, the flexibility of a statistical system. And let's use some machine learning tricks in order to allow this, okay? And because of this freedom, let's have our system reinterpret the rules as it goes, okay? Rather than having a very strong enforcement. So this approach is unique. Did we create, did we invent a wheel? No, we did not, okay? No, we did not. We are not coming up, we did not devise an equivalence of the digitalized neuron of 1956. This is not this, okay? This is a different way of doing things. This is also a different way, a more effective way, I would say, to approach the representations of the world than the ones which are usually found in gaming. Okay? And I will, with your permission, I will come back to this after. So let's keep this in mind as a pre-answer to your question. Okay? And let me explain you a very important concept, which is why statistical approach cannot work for gaming. As we've seen, you need data to feed to your statistical AI, to your neural network, to your large language model, to your ChatGPT, okay? ChatGPT is going to be super good at telling you things about which it can find references, okay? Meaning that these references, this data needs to be already available. How does it know that this data is pertinent? Well, it's basically saying, amongst all the data that I have, this looks like being, basically, what you have is, it's going to be establishing from a statistical standpoint in order to determine whether something is pertinent or not. And that's super important to understand. It doesn't know what is true. It doesn't know what is good, what is bad. It doesn't know what is true. It knows what is statistically representative. If you ask ChatGPT which form has the Earth, there is a good chance that at some point in time, he will tell you that it's flat. Why? Because the consensual approach, which is the truth, is that the Earth is a sphere. Bizarre sphere, but sphere. It's a round object. Mostly everyone is agreeing with this, except a relatively small but very active on internet community, which is saying that it's flat. So if you let ChatGPT or equivalents, if you train ChatGPT or equivalent saying, well, you are authorized to extend your data sets to the fact that the Earth is flat in order to incorporate it into your data sets, then it can tell you that the Earth is flat. It doesn't know and it doesn't care. All that it cares about is whether or not this is a possible, potential, credible reference in order to create its output. Okay? So this means that the quality of the data that you're having is going to greatly influence your output. This is, as we will discuss, we are creating an NPC population community, which is dynamically created. Okay? Of course, we would love to be able to say to people, well, thanks to our interface with ChatGPT, now you're going to have the ability to have these NPCs dialoguing with your characters. But we don't provide this. Why? Because it's not relevant, and it's never going to be. Because if you live in the fantastic world of X that you've been creating for your game, there is just no reference for your game on the internet. ChatGPT or whatever technology. Okay, I'm going to stop with the ChatGPT bashing in 2 minutes. Any large language model that you use, any large language model that you use will not have references for your world because your world is existing in your head. And unless you start writing about your world on the internet, or if you want to do it privately, unless you start writing about your world and saying, yeah, this is a world of X and this is happening this and this story is that and this geography is that and blah, 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 your NPCs will be unable to speak about the world of X because they won't have references. So if you spend ages defining what is the world of X, writing about the world of X, where is exactly the value of asking to a large language model to create the content for you? Okay? You will have written the content already 10 times, 100,000 times. Remember, 100,000 photographies of a cat before it knows it's a cat. So you will, however, benefit from a large language model in order to implement something else, which is natural language interaction with your NPC. So he understands, putting huge quote marks there, he understands what you want to tell him. You're back to the feature of the Hobbit in the 1980s, where you could speak using a very limited number of verbs, a very limited vocabulary, but you were speaking natural language with your RPG. So yes, you can use a large language model for that, so it understands what you want to tell him. But game developers, you will not, please mark my words, you will not, because it cannot do it, you will not obtain credible, relevant content from ChatGPT or other large language model from scratch. You will need to create this content. So you don't need the large language model for that. Don't use a large language model for that. It will be way less performant than feeding directly into your game, your content. Because at least you won't have to do it 100,000 times. Does that answer your question, Matt?
It does.
Okay, so now I also told you that what was kind of innovative in the way that we are using AI technology globally, okay, is in the way we are representing the world, the environment. Let me backpedal a little bit, take some distance, and start by explaining why we are using the AI technology globally, why we developed this specific flavor for Let's Kill Hitler, and actually not for Let's Kill Hitler, as I told you previously in our last call. Let's Kill Hitler is a showcase game for our tech. We developed this technology in order to answer what is for us the primordial question regarding open worlds. You need to populate, as a world designer, as a game designer, you have a need to provide into your world new content, a new content that is pertinent and adapted to your players. Okay? So, first things first, you need to understand what your players are expecting in terms of new contents. And one part of our technology is targeted to that, analyzing what the player, the individual, is, to put it in a nutshell, liking or disliking. You propose him a global universe. You propose him a lore, storytelling, and he likes and dislikes a number of things in it. Okay, chances that he's playing long enough, it's that he likes what you propose to him. But maybe there are some activities, some specifics that he's not going to like. I'm going to give you an example. I'm a very big fan of roaming the open world that is proposed to me. I took a lot of delight into playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I never finished RDR2. The end has been spoiled to me by other players. I never finished. I'm spending my time literally rolling the world, just doing nothing, taking a look at absolutely everything, and I really enjoyed this world. Other people will find it extremely boring to have to move constantly over long distances from point A to point B. They will find it excruciating. Okay? And so obviously, I am not the same player than another player who is not going to want to spend hours walking or riding from point A to point B. So your game needs to understand which kind of player it has in front of him. And he needs to react and adapt when creating the new content to these peculiarities of the player. Now, the creation of new content is the creation of new things to do in the world, which needs to be coherent with your global storytelling, okay? Because otherwise you're going to break immersion. So what you want to do is to provide content that makes sense, activities that make sense, that the player likes and that makes sense. And we think that the best way to do this is through the interaction with NPCs, because doing stuff in the world in an RPG generally goes through interacting with new NPCs, different NPCs having different experiences. The NPCs that you take into an RPG usually are very, very, very dumb. What I'm calling dumb. I'm going to give you a sample. You've certainly been playing my medieval fantastic RPGs. So generally in a medieval fantastic RPG, when you're roaming the country, you're getting these small villages with poor peasants which are occupied to till the soil. And as they are working on their crops, if the game is properly done, you're going to go into the village day one, you're going to see your peasant in the field A. He has a blue shirt, and the guy is working on corn. And if the game is properly done, he's not working at night, he's working during the day only. Knight is going back to his home. You're coming back the following days in the same place, doing the same thing. If the game is really well done, you start a fight close to your peasant is going to run away because he's going to be afraid. You got games where obviously you can kill 10 people in front of the guy. He's being unfazed. He's still working on his cornfield. What no game is able to propose today is your ability to change the life of these peasants. You can take your favorite RPG, any kind. You take 100 gold pieces, which is probably 10 lifetimes value of your peasants. You put it in front of the peasants. You let it in his field. Best case scenario, they won't be here anymore because he will have pocketed it and it will be part of his inventory. Worst case scenario, they will stay here forever. But in no way will your peasants say, wow, I've got 100 pieces of gold and I'm going to change my life because it's a game changer. So I'm going to leave the farm, take my family, go somewhere else. This is what we want to bring into the game because we believe that at the level where we are from a game industry standpoint globally, in terms of immersion, people who are playing want worlds that they can inhabit. They want to change the world. So you need to let them change the lives of the NPCs. Just like the big tendency right now is to have fully destructible and explorable worlds. Okay, so you should be able to open every door and you should be able to destroy everything that you want to destroy. Okay? Because otherwise, this is not that immersive. You have this giant warrior which is fighting ogres and dragons all the day. You are ultra strong. You've got powerful weapon, and you cannot open a door. Wow, this is not very realistic, right? So the big tendency is to make these environments being destructible and explorable. But nothing is done when it comes to changing the NPC life. And the reason is very simple. Game designers use NPCs either as decorations, okay, decor, or they use NPCs as specific quest givers or quest participants. So if in such a design you change the life of your NPC, then it's not here and not available anymore in order to provide the player with his quest. This is a phenomenon that you see in MMOs. Why can you kill certain characters? I mean, most of the RPG games, let's be honest, you are authorized to kill absolutely everything that you meet. You kill more than you talk. Why cannot you kill this guy who is on the side of the road? The game won't let you kill it because it's a quest giver. So if you kill it, quest number 125 will not be available anymore. And that's an issue. When you're in an MMO, if you kill a merchant or you kill a quest giver, you suppress it for the whole other pool of players. So that's even more disrupting. It's breaking the game. We believe that actually you should be entitled to kill the guy if you want. Just like you should be entitled to take a look at him and say, oh, you look very poor, and no, I'm not going to bring you 3 apples because I'm going to give you 100 gold pieces. And I'm going to change your life because I'm a nice guy. Right? For this to happen, you need 2 things. You need your NPC to have its own motivations. Okay? You need your NPCs to have the ability to change its rules of functioning by himself. So this is what we've been discussing previously with the fact when I was telling you, we are rule-based, but with the ability to relax and modify the rules. Okay? And the second thing is it needs to have an understanding of the world. And I'm going to break something to you. In most games, most technologies, NPCs, they don't understand their world. Okay? The AI behind an NPC is not one AI. You got very specific AIs, dialogue AI, combat AI. We are not dabbling with. What we are dabbling with is with something that I would call motivational AI. And this is absent of the market today. This is what we are bringing to the market. We are bringing to the market the fact of saying, well, you are Mr. or Mrs. NPC. You are a person with its own needs and aspirations. Okay? Because you are belonging to such or such or such or such class of NPC assets, your goals and motivations should be about this. The way you get there, so you're starting from your current condition. And your current condition is the one of a peasant that is, working in his field with growing his crop. But should something happen in your universe that makes so that you can get out of this condition, then you will do it. We kind of prompt them, to use a ChatGPT term, we prompt them with a drive for change. Their environment before at runtime doesn't allow them this. Okay, if you don't intervene as a player, then there is no reason why their life would change. But if you decide to make a move that is going to change their life, then they should have the ability to take advantage of this move. And what they will do with your 100 gold pieces, you need to explain them what is gold. Okay, but I'm going to come back to this in a sec. But what they will do is they will try to evolve according to rules that you've been giving them, and they're going to try to change their lives. So you see that the key condition for this is that they understand what is 100 gold pieces. A starving peasant that is asking you, as part of your quest, go fetch 5 apples so I can feed my family. You can have meals that you've been concocting thanks to the cooking system. You can have tons of them in your backpack and you're trying to give it to them and it doesn't want, but it's food. Eat it. He doesn't understand what is food. You need to explain him what is food. So we have devised a representation system of the game world, which is allowing the NPC to categorize things by analogies regarding their properties to things that he originally knows. So he starts with, let's say, a compendium of a knowledge base, okay, of basic stuff, which are basically the things that he has in his daily routine environment. And he's able to learn by analogy from the world. When he meets something new, he's able to make the analogy and to say, okay, this is a substitute or an equivalent for this that I know. That knowing meaning I know which use I can do for myself. All right, and this is what we have been implementing. So the representation of the world, I would call it the items, okay, in your world, is something that is very important. And this is, in our approach, a key element which is allowing us to provide this intelligent population. And population is quite important because, and this is also the differential regarding our technology. Generally speaking, NPCs in-game are not conscious of each another. They are completely ignorant of other NPCs, okay? Not meaning that they are not able to bump into each other oh, sorry, I bumped into you, whatever. They don't understand that they are part of a collective. And what we do is we bring them this sense of a collective, and we bring it through the relationship systems, let's call it, that we create within this global NPC population. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Okay.
I want to say, though, I just want to point out here that I feel like you and your team are not just creating NPCs, but it's almost like you all have created a fully functioning society. Is that just me, or do you kind of get that feeling too?
Oh, this was exactly your goal, our goal here. We don't believe that there is value into creation of single NPCs separated, okay? Except in one very specific case, which is, of course, the creation by the game designer of the NPCs so that they participate into specific quests. Okay, so this is the normal process of creation of an NPC, and we don't want to challenge this, and we will never be able to challenge this. We will never provide, I want to demystify this immediately, we will never provide an NPC that is as detailed and as brilliantly and carefully scripted than the ones that can be created by game designers. This is not what we are providing. And we don't want to pretend to do this. We just say that a game designer should focus exclusively on that. What we say to game designers is, guys, please stop providing us with dumb copy-paste NPCs just changing the color of their shirts. Please, the filling NPCs, the rank and file, the decor NPCs, stop with this. Please, stop. It's a catastrophe. It doesn't meet the expectation of players anymore. Players don't want any more guys who are occupied in fields, always doing the same stuff, and which are completely impervious to whatever is happening around. They want to be able to interact with each and every NPC in the game. This is where we had this, I mentioned this, I think, on yesterday when we had our general talk about the game, where I said that some game designers are doing very well, but because they cheat. Red Dead Redemption 2 is, for me, the most brilliant example of this. It's a brilliant game from the NPC standpoint. I mean, the NPCs are so credible and they are so individualized that you can spend ages observing them. And Rockstar managed this because, well, there are not a lot of NPCs. They are brilliant because they spend ages defining each and every of them. And they managed to do this because their world is empty. And it works because it's credible that it's empty. Because yes, you're in the Wild West. So it's normal that you spend hours without meeting anyone. It's normal that when you meet somebody, it's a couple of guys or a very small community. It makes sense. This is the reason why, the exact reason why Cyberpunk first release has been a catastrophe. It was not so much the technical issues, display, etc., etc. It was not that. It was that people were expecting Night City, a crowded place, full of interactions with carefully designed NPCs. And they didn't get this. They didn't get this. The studio had been letting people, consciously or not, believe that they would get, I think that it was unconscious, believe that they were going to have thousands of NPCs that they could interact with. The crowded Night City. You were getting out of the main place, you were seeing 10 guys walking left and right. Problem. And dump. Big problem. But in Red Dead Redemption, it works perfectly. It works with the world. So what we are saying to developers is stop filling your world with dumb NPC. And give us NPCs which are credible. And you cannot do this because of the cost, because of the time. Who has the time to design hundreds, thousands of NPCs just so that there is an ability to roam a busy world without seeing always the same guys with the same shirts? And it's not the shirt the problem. The problem is the behavior without experiencing a copy-paste effect. And this is what we are solving. Okay? We are coming up saying, we will not replace your ability and your will create NPCs which are carefully designed, but save it for your quest, save it for your storytelling. Just like we say, stop giving us go kill 10 wolves Go fetch 5 apples. Stop to provide us this grinding system because this is killing, because this is boring. Instead of this, don't deal with this. Use our tech. Our tech will provide you with the grinding quest, which will be much more interesting than go fetch 3 apples, which will be things that your players like to do. And these quests will be animated by NPCs which are credible, that you won't need to code. You won't need to design it. Put all your efforts into bringing us what is your value, which is to bring us a brilliant universe with a brilliant storytelling. And we will fill the gaps, but we will fill it in a way which is credible. And credibility comes by showing life. And human life is social life. By definition, you cannot have a random-based generated NPCs stuck together in one place because they will ignore themselves. You need to come up, when you show a village on the map and I'm entering the village, I should be able to feel that it's breathing and living. So I should be able to feel interactions between the NPC. And if I don't want a copy-paste effect, they cannot be randomized. And if they are deterministic, but you are prohibited to code because I prefer you to code your carefully designed NPCs for your storytelling, then this means that something has got to determine it. And this something comes from the fact that they are created as a collective. Does that Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. In fact, I would say it went well beyond my questioning and actually opened up another question I would like to ask here. Now, with the fact that this technology is able to create such a population of NPCs, I mean, we're talking about, 1,000 plus NPCs. And not only NPCs, but their schedules and what have you. How much system resources does such creation or such NPCs use?
It entirely depends upon what you as a game designer will want to implement in terms of complexity of the NPCs. But to take the example of Let's Kill Hitler, basically NPC in action, what we call an managed NPC, meaning that he is currently evaluated for his behavior over all of the possible characteristics, is going to take 200 bytes in memory. And what we manage is actually 34 characteristics, core characteristics for this determination. So it's actually, I wouldn't say it's nothing, because when you start to have a large number of them, of course, things are becoming complicated, but it's inexpensive. It's absolutely inexpensive. Now, I want to clarify one thing here, okay? And this needs to be very clear. When we're talking about the NPC, we are talking about the AI NPC, okay? So we are talking about the persona. We are not talking, of course, I don't put in 200 bytes, graphical representation of the NPC. So what do we do is to limit the thing. What we do is we are allowing that you are choosing from your catalog of assets, graphical assets, either full bodies, okay, bodies, heads, and so on, if you have the patience to do this, or that you assemble. This is what we use in Let's Kill Hitler, actually. We are assembling elements of bodies, head, etc., using, I would call it genetic determination, okay? So let's imagine that our characters, going to backpedal a bit on that one. First things first, we don't create the NPCs like from scratch. We create them from a parent population. Okay? So we determine a parent population in Let's Kill Hitler. We are determining a parent population of 400 NPCs, 200 male, 200 female, which each of them have got a number of these 34 characteristics, which is specific to them. We have a bias because we want to achieve at the end of the day a specific statistic repartition for the gameplay within our population. So we have a bias for political alignment, let's say, because we need to provide each faction with support population in a certain percentage of the population. So we are biasing a bit, but originally the system is not made to be biased. The system is made to say, well, I'm taking 1 to n characteristics, like you wish, depending upon your memory, the memory use limitation that you have. And you are allowing, we have an inheritance system of the characteristics, okay, which is rule-based. So you're going to, each of our characters is going to match or not match with companions, okay? They're going to have social interaction. We kind of generate a drive for them to have a number of social interactions at every turn, if I can say, of their life, okay? And what they do is they match or not match. So this goes for friend-enemities relationship. And this goes, of course, for mating relationship. And when they mate, they are going to have a certain number of kids, which are going to inherit from characteristics of their parents according to inheritance rule. And we're going to propagate this generation after generation after generation until we reach, so you've got different ways of controlling, of course, your population creation. But in Let's Kill Hitler, we got a rule where we're saying, well, when we've reached between 1,000 and 1,500 adult NPCs in play with certain characteristics, statistical repartition in the population, then we shut down. Okay, we stop the time and we're saying, okay, this is our starting point. Right? This is our starting population. So this means that they've got an ancestry, that they've got, you got the whole history of their ancestors and so on, which is recorded by the system. So you can use the tech here in order to generate actually any combination of factors and characteristics. You can define through the inheritance rules how the transmission of each characteristic is going to work. Okay. Is it going to be the father characteristic A value is predominant on the mother characteristics A value, or is it the opposite, or this is random, or is it in conjunction with another factor? I mean, you can create almost any rule, okay, of inheritance like this. And so the structure of your starting population is, of course, determinant for the structure of your next kids generation, which is going to have also an impact on the next one. So you see that it's very different from creating a population at random. There is a notion of determinism and causality in the way that we are creating our population.
I do have a bit of perhaps a small question, more of a curiosity. Mm-hmm. When you mention the NPCs being able to pair up and become a couple and produce children, is there a certain limit to the number of children a pair can have, or is it unlimited, or is it something that's predetermined by certain values, or is it something that a developer can adjust to their liking?
Well, actually, I'm going to answer the adjustment more in detail after, but it's fully adjustable. Okay, but I will explain you the limitation. A developer now can effectively fully adapt this because it's just tweaking a number of. But I'm going to explain you why what is happening in Let's Kill Hitler. In Let's Kill Hitler, we have set a parameter which is fertility period. Okay, so basically from 21 to the age of 40, not been very inventive, there is the ability for a woman to bear a child. A couple which has been formed is going to try to have a child. All right, and it's going to try every year to have a child. They might or they might not succeed in doing so. And actually, they might or they might not try if the economic condition that they are on at this time is not pertinent. So if the couple is too poor at this time to sustain a child, they don't do it, and they wait. They are super responsible. So, but you could have a completely different rule. We've got a rest rule also of 1 year after giving birth. Okay, so usually this will result into a practical limit. We've been running a lot of tests to see what it was giving. The maximum number of kids that we are attaining generally is around 6.
Now, in game, how long is a year?
Oh, so here we are not in game. Okay, here we are not in game. We are at the initialization of the game because we create this population. The peculiarity of Let's Kill Hitler is all the action is performed during 12 hours, during daytime of 1 day. Okay, so we are simulating 1 day because you get your chance to kill Hitler only once. I mean, last for years. So it's this commando of intrepid agents of allied factions which is arriving to save the world. So action is supposed to be represented over 1 day of action. So they will obviously not mate or attempt to reproduce during this time. Okay, what I'm describing you here is the mechanism that we use to generate the starting population. Okay, of course, the parameters are here, so we could run the simulation if we were to provide to be integrated to a game which is allowing you to work on I don't know 25 years lifespan, for an example. Of course, it would make sense to maintain this relationship between the NPCs. All right. And this is completely possible because, to give you an idea, to provide a valid population, I remind you what is a valid population for us. There is a certain percentage of supporters of the Nazis, certain level of supporters of the French, the English, etc. Inside there is a certain social also representation of the population at the end of the day, and a certain number of adults. To arrive at this, we are taking less than 30 seconds. So from the moment you click on new game to the moment where you are being popped up on the map, you've got less than 30 seconds. And this includes a number of cases in which we've kind of been overshooting and we've been creating a population that is too big, or we are not yet at the proper level of population, or it doesn't match our criteria. And from there, we're going to kick out this population, which is happening not every time. And we never met, actually, and we've been running extensive number of tests. We never met a case in which we had to run more than 3 simulations to arrive there. Okay, so 30 seconds is actually running 2 to 3 simulations. This is usually shorter than this. So you perfectly understand that in a game which is lasting years, you could have an attempt, why not every month or every day, or okay, because this would be completely costless in terms of resources. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Now, one more thing I just want to point out before we continue on, or one more thing I just want to ask. This is just another curiosity type of question. Mm-hmm. I think maybe some of my audience might be wondering about this as well. Is there a limit to the number of NPCs that can be created here. And by NPCs, I mean the ones that we've been discussing, the ones that are created via this process, not the NPCs that are specifically created for quests.
As I told you, the occupation, I think that with with 34 different parameters per NPC, both which are covering basically, 3 are covering the physical appearance. 1 is very specific to, let's kill Hitler, it's the faction alignment, but can be something that can make sense in a game. And the 30 other ones are behavioral. We managed to have a super high, I mean, we've been overshooting on that one. We managed to have a super high level of individualization and of the behaviors. Okay, so we believe that it's more than sufficient for providing rank and file NPCs for any RPG. Now you can add, of course, as many parameters as you want. Again, with 34 parameters, we occupy less than 200 bytes. Okay, so if you are targeting gaming computers which are dedicated with the proper configuration for gaming, I mean, there is virtually, I would say, no limit. Yeah, no limit. You take the number of NPCs in games like GTA or games like Cyberpunk, you are in the low thousands. Okay. Providing 10,000 NPCs is going to be overkill. Okay, the real limit is not this. The real limit is their physical representation in the world, because we have discussed this. I cannot remember if this was part of our off the record conversation, or if it's part of what we have recorded for the presentation of the game, but we have been entering with Let's Kill Hitler in a huge problem because we've got very basic maps and graphics as we discussed, and at some point in time our original idea, which was to show to the players the feature of people moving from according to their schedule, a little bit like The Sims, okay, moving from point A to point B because it's time to go to work. We do it logically, okay? They do it logically. In game, they are. You mentioned the word schedule. I will come, with your permission, come back to this because it's we have a different approach here also. But basically, according to their schedule, big quotes here, they are moving from A to B. We manage it in memory. We do all the computation of these movements. What we don't do is, because we renounce to do it, is to represent them, all of them, okay, moving from A to B. Because we are managing 1,000 NPCs at the same time. It's not there is 1,000 NPCs in the game. There is 1,000 NPCs in the game, and as it is a population, we are managing the events of their lives real time for everyone, every turn. So basically, the problem now comes to what is your universe, okay? What is your game? If you're having Night City, okay, and you want to pull up 1,000 guys in the same place at the same time, the problem will not come from us. The problem will come from your graphic engine, because you're going to show 1,000 NPCs, you're going to show 1,000 bodies. We will have disposed of the personas with no problem. You can give us 10,000 if you want. It's costing almost nothing in memory. But these bodies, okay, the graphical representation of them is going to be a huge issue to manage. So, again, everything that I'm saying has to be taken as use a pinch of salt, okay? It's not because the technology is allowing it that it's good, What we want to show is we are able to really manage the interactions of a society. Because otherwise, Mike, to be frank, what I've been explaining you so far looks like The Sims. If you've been playing The Sims, there is not much difference. Well, in fact, there is, and there is a lot. Because the way The Sims are managed is, yes, there are schedules, fixed schedules for the NPCs, and they have a very interesting approach, but which is not ours, which is that they kind of leave the NPCs which are not in action radius, okay, in which you currently are. They just leave the NPCs in stasis. They compute a slope, okay? They compute an evolution slope for the NPC. So they say, well, I'm going to put you in the freezer, but I know that you were with this kind of mood and this kind of needs and this kind of current direction of your actions. And when I'll come back to you later on, when it will be your time to go out of the freezer to be presented to the player, you will have evolved according to this slope, which is a very, very, very brilliant way of dealing with things, because you got to imagine that the Sims have been here for quite some time. Okay, so this means that they had to deal with the computing abilities of PCs which are decades old. So it makes complete sense to use this strategy, because you cannot afford to have this number of guys, such as in The Sims. You cannot afford to have this number of guys being managed when you're back 10 years or 15 years ago, right?
That's right.
We can only afford this because actually we are managing to keep things small, and the level of computing has been, considerably evolving. I told you 200 bytes in memory, which is also roughly 200 bytes on disk. Okay, it's nothing. It's nothing. So yeah, give me. If I take you 2 megabytes of data, of memory or disk space, this is nothing. Well, there was a long time during which this was something.
Absolutely.
So the Sims have been built with, and they kept this, with this way of managing this issue. And we are from another age and another approach. And we are saying, no, don't do this. Because you don't need, and I agree, you don't need to represent physically the guy that is in the freezer, because your player doesn't see it because he's 10 blocks away. So don't represent it physically, but keep on managing him, because the weak point, the cost that you have when you are The Sims is, if the world is changing beyond recognition between the time you put your guy in the freezer and the time you are exiting from this, taking him out from this pool of frozen NPCs, the moment that you are going to put back your guy in circulation, you will compute a slope that was corresponding to the situation as it was when you put him in the freezer, without taking into consideration anything that has happened in between. And when you are in an RPG, and this is one of the reasons why it's working properly with The Sims, because what you are simulating is more or less ordinary daily lives. You are simulating very detailed, but ordinary daily lives. There is not in the Sim an invasion of orcs which are starting to kill your neighbors, okay, overnight while you were in the freezer. This is not happening, okay? Actually, you take an RPG, this is going to happen quite often, right? If it's not the player themselves which are starting a rampage. So your world is going to change as an NPC. Okay? Your world is going to change, and it's going to change dramatically. And it should be allowed to change, and it should be impacting you, because this is creating a whole, you're almost reaching this emergent plane, okay? You've initialized your world with, let's say, 2 villages, okay? Which are in relative proximity. And your village the first village is being attacked. And depending upon the reaction of your players, which are the good guys protecting the area, a certain number of people are going to flee, number of people are going to die, and a certain number of people are going to survive and stay there. Okay? And maybe some guys will go to the other village. All right? Or maybe the village has been razed completely, and there is a population of refugee which is coming to the neighboring village. This is creating room for new quests. You lose this the moment that you say, I'm putting part of my population into the freezer. I'm isolating them from the evolutions of the world. Or I'm going to simulate them, but yeah, my world needs not to move too much, because if it moves too much, then it's not going to be, my frozen character, when he's unfrozen, is not going to be in sync. It's not going to be coherent. It's going to look kind of odd in there. So we manage, again, the population. You were very right, we're creating a population and we're managing a population, right?
I gotta say, comparing it with The Sims actually that's a very good comparison there. Very, very good comparison, I would say. And I can appreciate where it came from, where that game came from. I remember playing The Sims on a 2001, 2002 circa PC. Mm-hmm. Definitely different world, different technology. But I think Let's Kill Hitler and the way it's set up and with its population and its world, I think it's going to be able to offer a much more dynamic experience. Not just for the player. Oddly enough, not just for the player, but also for the NPCs. And I'm not so sure we've ever been able to say that about another game. I don't think we have, though. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, on the paper, and you're not wrong per se, okay? But again, we are reaching back to our discussion of yesterday regarding the game itself. What we're going to have is, you have the issue of an indie studio that is not even a game studio. All right. So don't expect, and I don't want your audience to expect that we will even reach the degree of representation of the NPCs that you find in The Sims. Okay. They're going to be way less than this. But again, we're talking about the technology, and don't forget, it's a showcase game. What we want to show to your audience is they will be able to interact in Let's Kill Hitler with a population of 1,000 guys, and each and every of them is going to be different interaction, different outcome of the interaction, different benefit to interact with it or not. Okay? And for us, it's a way to say, don't forget that, again, we are not here to sell a game to players. We'll be very happy. Don't get me wrong, if it's a commercial success, we'll be super happy. But first and foremost, our clientele is game studios, and especially indies. Okay? Especially indies. Because what they have in inventivity, they lack in resources. Okay? They cannot afford to spend ages developing NPCs, rank and file NPCs, to fill their world. They don't have the resources for that. Okay, but they can benefit from it, from our tech, in order to propose this, and they will have the graphical level in order to provide a proper experience to the players. You don't get in Let's Kill Hitler, unfortunately. We tried, but as I explained to you, from a map perspective, which means that it's a graphical design problem with us. Okay? We are unable to provide something that we wanted to provide, which was the ability for players to follow, if they wanted, an individual NPC. We are computing the path of the NPC from point A to point B, because we got to know if this path is valid, blocked, if he's being attacked while he's walking from A to B. We need to know that. okay, for the gameplay. We just don't represent it. Okay, but a decent RPG will be able to represent that, and this is exactly what we would like actually fellow indie developers to pick up, to use our tech, embed it into their games, and build new experiences, new mechanisms, and reinforce the credible character of their universe.
Yeah, so I just want to point out, full disclosure to my audience listening, I have not played Let's Play Hitler. I'm sorry, I have not played Let's Kill Hitler yet. So I'm just going off what I read and what Lawrence has told me. So any question I may ask, or any reaction I may have to what Lawrence has told us here today, please take that with a grain of salt and put much more weight behind what Lawrence is saying as opposed to what I'm saying in this regards. Though I am very eager to get my hands on it, I'm not gonna lie. It sounds like quite the experience. October can't get here soon enough, man.
But yeah, I know it's going to be anyway very different. But you will be closer to an 80s game, right? From the RPG standpoint, you will be closer to an 80s game definitely that you are. It will enjoy. I mean, the people that are really going to enjoy this are people who are open to retro gaming. I mean, if you're a retro gamer and you like retro RPGs, you will definitely like Let's Kill Hitler. It's nothing will be shocking for you. The younger generations, which are not into this and whose experience is Zelda and Skyrim and so on, guys don't have expectations regarding this site. Okay, anyway, you don't need to pay for the game, so please download when it's out. Download, play it. I swear one thing, you will have fun, but the thing would be very much different if I was coming to you and saying, well, Let's Kill Hitler is priced at $40 and please buy it. All right. That's, and I would be, I would be saying, well, guys, really, if you've never played an old-fashioned style, almost text-based entirely RPG, don't put your money in this. You would cry. Okay, it's not going to happen. The fun that you will have from the universe and all the puns that we put and so on is not going to be worth your $40. You will not appreciate. Right? Yeah, the thing is different. It's really, take it as it is. It's a showcase game. It's a no pretense game from the pure gaming standpoint, but you will experience definitely, and we can guarantee this, something in terms of interaction with the NPCs. You will experience a diversity like you probably never have regarding what you have to do in game. Right? The very basic tasks that you have to do in game. You will see that we are able to actually not pay at all compared to a very decent, really role playing rather than hack and slash, okay, game. So don't refrain from using our game. We will be more than happy. But again, from a graphical standpoint, guys, we are not Skyrim. We are not Skyrim. We are not Baldur's Gate, and this is not going to match any expectation that you might have. So please don't have expectations regarding this. Okay.
Now, I think this might be a good time to point out here. And one thing I really love about this that I do know, I checked it out on the Steam page. It says that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe I'm correct here, that it's going to be available for Windows, Mac, and Linux plus Steam OS, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And first, let me just give you you and your team a really huge thank you. As a Linux user, I'm always so happy to come across a game dev that thinks about us. I'm really, really happy that you guys have made your game. available on, for Steam. I want to ask here, how difficult was it for your team have it functional for all these different operating systems as opposed to just having it on one operating system?
Oh, it is quite easy. I'm putting big quotes around easy, right? But our game is an app which is entirely Java developed. Entirely. Because the tech is where we are talking about, because the AI system is in Java. So we said, okay, we don't have a special pretenses from a graphical standpoint. Let's go. We are not using a Unity or a UE engine. Let's do this in JavaFX. So this was actually quite easy for us to put up an application which is portable across the different platforms. To be very honest, what we're suffering with, and the reason why we are actually struggling with time, is the integration with Steam. This is our first game, and this is our first Steam launch. And I think that fellow devs which might be listening to your show will perfectly understand what we are talking about. Okay, Steam is brilliant. Okay, but they have a very, very peculiar way of organizing their documentation. It's a complete pain in the ass to access easily the information that you need in order to bear a proper Steam launch. So this has been still the complicated part for us, and it's taking a lot of time for us to do this. We were absolutely not expecting this, and we encountered this quite recently when we said, okay, let's get ready to launch the demo. Where it was, wow, where is the information that we need? And discussion that we had with the community shows that everyone who has been launching on Steam has gone through this. Everybody's saying, well, first game, real pain in the ass. Now, when you know where the stuff is, then second, third, and fourth, and I mean, it's really not a problem. But the first one is complicated, and this is exactly what we have. But it's not operating system related.
Yeah, it's like a rite of passage for most indie devs to go through this. I've actually came across quite an issue with some devs who have talked about this. They've said that they wish that Steam would better communicate certain aspects of the platform to them. Like I once, for example, came across an indie dev who had their game at a Steam Next Fest, and at the time, it wasn't well communicated that you could only have your game at one Next Fest, and so they ended up having their game at a Next Fest, like way off from their actual launch, and so it was just a headache. And so I've heard tales time and time again of there being poor communication or poor organization of communication on the part of Steam with indie devs. I can definitely understand the struggle there, fam.
Yeah, we released on we will release also on itch.io for the ones who we are not part of the Steam community anyway. Okay, so the game will be downloadable from itch.io also.
Actually, I'm not gonna lie to you. I do prefer itch.io, and I always that site always gives me trouble. I always want to call it itch.io, but
yeah,
I do enjoy the fact that I can run a game without having to go through a launcher. So that is an added convenience there. But I want to ask. Sorry.
No, you're welcome. I was just going to say that the only problem that we see with itch is the visibility. I mean,
that's true.
It's super hard to get some form of reach, and it turns out that we started actually our only marketing today is done through Twitter and the community, because of course we dialogue more by definition with indie game designers than indie game players. I mean, the community is Steam, like I won't say 100%, but yeah, nearly. So we get a ridiculous traffic on itch. It's one visit a day, something like this. So it's not exactly what we were expecting on the platform, but still we decided to leave it open and to also give the ability to people to go through this platform.
can imagine that. I will say, and I'm not sure how much you guys could take advantage of this situation with Let's Kill Hitler, but I will say one really big thing that Itch does do is they'll have so many game festivals, so many game festivals, and Steam does this too. I think Steam does it as well. Besides the really big ones, I'm not sure if you guys could work in Let's Kill Hitler with any of that, but that may perhaps help out there.
That surely would help, Mike. But also, and though, yeah, becoming multi-billionaires through the sale of Let's Kill Hitler, you offer me this tomorrow, and I say bravo, and I won't spit on it. But again, the goal for us is to have. We don't dream and we don't want that many players also at the beginning, because one of the key things that we are aiming at is, well, because two things. First things first, I believe, and we believe generally within the team, that it will be a game that will be much more enjoyed being played in co-op than being playing solo in the V1. Okay, before we come with serious content in V2, as we discussed, in terms of storytelling. Okay, we provide a fun global universe, but it remains at this stage a relatively small game. The main value is multiplayer and the having fun with friends, betraying friends, stabbing them in the back. Remember, this part of our conversation. So as we make it free, we obviously don't charge for the online multiplayer. And if tomorrow we start to have hundreds of thousands of users, we are not going to like it. Okay, from a financial standpoint, obviously we're not going to like it. So our goal is to have a launch with satisfied players who don't experience huge lags or whatsoever because of poor performance of servers. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when we've been discussing the core tech part, I told you, we've been going very much in detail when it comes to this creation of content, okay? But I told you, it's content that needs to be tailored to the individual player, okay? We want it to be tailored to individual player. So this means that we've got a part of our AI, which we are actually communicating, saying it's an AI framework. Okay, so you got several AIs within the AI, and one of the AI is dedicated at measuring the reactions of the players to the contents that they are experiencing in order to produce new content. Okay, so the Let's Kill Hitler initial scope is allowing us to monitor a very small number of parameters because there is not so much parameters necessary to create the contents, but we want to keep it we want to keep it small again in order to see if this system is properly set up. We experienced it through the team of development, but this is not Blizzard or Activision. So when you experience with half a dozen people, yeah, you get results. We want to see if we got significant results with hundreds and possibly thousands of players on that before we roll out, before either we confirm what I would call the training, okay, of the thing, or if we need to change it. So this is the reason why we don't market massively or want to push it. We will be very happy to have a lot of players, but we don't want too many players because we want to keep control on our ability to monitor how our AI is coping with the situation.
So if I understand correctly, the launch of the basic single player mode is going to function a bit like a test, right?
Well, what we can say is it doesn't have bugs that we've been able to identify. Okay, so it's working. It's really a working demo. As I told you yesterday, it's a demo because the whole content is not available. It will be in the V1, and there will be more in the V2. But even at this stage, we're not talking only about the demo. We're talking about the overall game. We don't want to have, I mean, if we have again a huge commercial success, we will be happy. But this is not our core target here. Our core target is to have much more people than us, okay, playing, and to be able to have a return of experience from the players. Say, yeah, I can feel I can feel the effect of the system without it being too brutal. Let me explain. Let me give you two highlights on this sentence. People at The Sims are usually saying that if you have a feature, show it. You got plenty of in the history of game design. You got plenty of cases of really brilliant processes which have been features which have been set, but which are here, which are running, but the player cannot see it. It doesn't see what it does for him. It's not perceptible saying, oh, yeah, I see. This is a feature. This is a feature doing this for me. And it's improving the gameplay experience. So we want to make sure that people who play Let's Kill Hitler can, for each and every of the features which are unique to us, they can pinpoint it and say, oh, yeah, if it was not here, then I would not have that. Okay? And of course, it's positive. Now, what you want to avoid is to have an effect that is too brutal. It needs to remain subtle. I'm going to give you an example. We've got a part of our AI which we are calling nudge, which is doing exactly what the verb means. It's nudging. It's supposed to be nudging gently the player. Let me give you a sample application that would be in an RPG, another RPG. You got your medieval fantastic world, and you got your main quests, and the player is kind of straddling behind. That would be me, okay? I'm spending so much time roaming the world that I'm leaving the main quest aside, and I'm accumulating XP, and I'm exploring places which the game designer thought that he would show me as a surprise later on during the game. So I was not supposed to visit the city of blah, but I went there, okay? Because a face-off game that I was supposed to complete in 2 hours, I've been spending 20 hours of world exploration. And when you're in an open world, if you want, it's very complicated to block this if you don't want to break the open world characteristic. Okay, you cannot exactly say, well, you cannot go there. An example is going in front of guards who are saying, you cannot enter. Why? Because I'm level 5. This is supposed to be, there are other people of level 5 and less which are living in this area, should be able to enter. It's a city, and I see people coming in. Why cannot I enter? Yeah, you're not supposed to get there because you've not been completing quest blah. Complicated, okay? So the idea is that we're going to try instead to keep you away from going there. So we're going to use a carrot and stick strategy. We're going to pop content in front of you saying, no, it's not so nice. See, I've got the nicer stuff for you in this other area where I want you to go as a game designer. I want you to go there first. So I'm going to show you stuff which is interesting for you. So I'm going to pop up an NPC which is going to propose you a quest. Okay? And this quest is going to take you there. Thank you very much. If you keep on, then I'm going to pop up maybe some danger. Okay, saying, don't go there. This direction stinks. I mean, you don't want to go there. It's too complicated for you. It's too dangerous. Take another way, please. Okay? This nudging is extremely complex to manage not because of the technical difficulty of doing it. I mean, it's relatively simple. The thing is in the tuning, because if every time that you get out of your path, you've got 50 orcs coming on your face and just beating the shit out of you, it's not going to be nice also. All right. So you need to keep things which are relatively imperceptible. So we want to show stuff, but not to overshow stuff. And here we don't have clearly on the nudging part, we do not have the necessary amount of data. Okay. We don't have enough player experience to say this is working. We know that this is working for us. Okay. With our limited number of people playing, with our limited experience with this specific implementation of our tech in Let's Kill Hitler, we see the nudging parts as working. Now we are in a very limited universe, but we see it working. We can extrapolate that it will work. Now, I cannot promise you that it will work like we experience it. And this is also the reason why we want to have a relatively small number of players, because what we would love to do is to be able to communicate with the players while they play, while they have some return of experience, and they can tell us, well, guys, this is a bit overshooting, or guys, I don't see anything. I don't see where this is kicking in. Okay? So we know where to set our potentiometer, let's say, okay, or interaction of the way the AI is adapting to the player. You remember when we've been talking about this Microsoft Stay and with the Alabama story? I told you that the Alabama was definitely the core problem, but there was also the degree of adaptability of the AI to its human counterparts. Here, we need to be able to to fine-tune the potentiometer, and we don't have enough practice, return of experience, and data to consider it like being reasonably representative of what it will be. So we want to have this, and this is also one of the reasons why we don't want the people to pay for the game, because we don't want to have to manage pissed off people. So this is also the reason why we are inciting people who are wishlisting us. And that's very nice. And thank you guys if you are listening to Big Mike and you're one of our wishlisters. Thank you for that. Thank you for the support. Don't forget to follow us. Because we have no way with Steam to know who you are. So as we don't know who you are, we are unable to tomorrow communicating with you. So please don't hesitate. Drop us a DM, or DM are open for our community. Drop us a DM saying, hey, this is me. I'm one of your followers. I've been wishlisting you, and I'm okay that you communicate with me when the game will be available. And we'll be very happy to ask from you directly, okay, how do you feel? How do you feel with the game? Are you happy with it? Do you see what we've been talking about? Do you feel the effects? Is it too much? Okay. And please tell us. So this will allow us to also fine tune this specific system.
I would say, yeah, definitely, please be sure to give these guys a follow on Twitter if you haven't. And also, please just wishlist their games as well, man. Let me tell you, one thing that you may not really realize, but wishlisting games really goes a long way to support indie developers. Really goes a long way to support them. It really shows. Yeah. It really shows them. In the case of Let's Kill Hitler the game. Even if if this was a paid game, for example, it's not. At least the first portion's not. However, even if you can't, wishlisting their game is a great way to support them. It shows them the number of people who would love to play their game. And that's, I guess, a good metric for them. However, I would also recommend, Heaton Lawrence's advice. Be sure to drop them a DM. I can tell you from personal experience, they are very interactive, and they will definitely reply to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to use the fact that we are targeting, at least initially, a small base. It's to exactly because what we want to bring, what we want to have is a community around the game. I mean, if you're here with interest purely for the tech, and the game is not your stuff, yeah, but become part of our community too. We're going to exchange on this. If you're here for the game but don't care that much about the technology, be there. We are interacting with you. We want to interact with you because the idea is to be able to provide you a proper experience. We like to have satisfied user, that's for sure. And also because this is opening a channel of communication that otherwise we will not have. And we won't have no way to improve without this channel of communication. What Mike has been saying about wishlisting, and now I'm not talking about Let's Kill Hitler, but generally speaking about indie devs. Yeah, it shows support, definitely. It's allowing the games to also become visible to more people. This is the way Steam algorithm is working. And it's giving a precious information. What we have access to as developers in Steam is the country where you are from. And we can pretty much equate country and language. And for any indie game that is out there that is eager to localize its contents, to provide you the ability to play in your language, this is precious because translating these things costs money. It might not be a huge budget for an indie. Everything is huge. We don't have the luxury to partake into public funding and to have multi-million dollars budgets. So every dollar that we don't spend in vain is a dollar that goes into the game value for you and helping us save in places where we should not have to misspend our dollars is going to help any game. If you wishlist, this is not creating an obligation for you to buy when talking about the paid games. This is not creating an obligation for you to buy, and this is allowing the developers to say, well, I've got 30% of my interested players which are coming from Latin America, excluding Brazil, and maybe it's time that I'm thinking about Spanish edition, for example, which is going to cost money. But yeah, makes sense that I provide a degree of comfort to my players. So yeah, wishlisting is caring, definitely.
Before we go, I want to ask, is there any other features of this tech that you think our listeners would be interested in?
Yeah, I think that what they would be interested in is the way that, and I'm talking about RPG use, okay? Our tech can be used to populate any open world, okay? You can provide targets, credible targets in an FPS if you want. But it makes sense completely in an RPG because remember what I was discussing previously. What you need, I told you, statistical tech does not work well for gaming because you don't have enough data, okay, which is openly available to train your system. Because the data that you have is really, you should write it for your game. You should write the data to feed to your system according to your game, because otherwise it won't have references, so it won't have intelligence, okay? Now, there is a specific case when it comes to user experience measure, because in user experience measuring, this makes sense, and this is where we are using statistical system, actually, to measure whether or not the players like what they do, and to understand what they don't like. You want more travel or you want less travel, to take the example of me roaming open roads. It's obvious, and I'm back to my 100,000 images of cats to understand what is a cat. It's obvious that even with the most addict of players, you don't get, and you will never get, into such a system enough data from the gameplay in order to have a proper experience measuring. You won't get enough data to make a proper stats. And the risk that you have if you do this is that you're going to pick kind of the wrong trend. Okay? For an example, your character has been in a grinding phase. He had to bring apples by the ton. You might conclude, and this would be a very wrong move, that what he loves is tasks of bring me 3 apples. And you're going to choke him to death with generating this kind of task. So that would be a very, very wrong move to rely only on the limited data that you can collect, because you're going to be picking wrong trends. Now, RPG is very peculiar because in a proper, and I wouldn't say in a RPG, but globally in role-playing oriented RPG, you're going to be into a configuration in which you got multiple ways to ask feedback intelligently from your players. Any interaction can become, if you're making it in a subtle way, it can become a way to ask feedback about the activities which have been performed recently by the player. By asking him his opinion about the experience of gameplay that he had so far. That could be a tavern keeper who is saying, welcome stranger. We heard about your travel from point A to point B, and wow, you love traveling, apparently. And imagine 2 buttons. No, I hate traveling, but I had to do it. Or, yes, I love traveling. That could be a very brutal way of managing it, okay? But there are enough interactions that you can build in, and our tech is actually generating dynamically this dialogue environment. Okay, so it's generating automatically these questions which are asked in a little bit nicer way. You will see it when you play Let's Kill Hitler, where you're getting a little bit more natural way of asking things. But the idea is you can poll your player during the game. And this is super important because now this is allowing you to confirm the trend. So did you like having to fetch apples 100 times over the last 2 hours? Yes or no? Okay. Oh, you really like to go fetch apples. Okay, I understand. Oh, no, it's starting to piss you off a lot. Yeah, let's stop this. Okay. So now it makes sense to use this statistical artificial intelligence, and this is one of the features actually of our AI framework, our global toolkit.
This might be a bit of a technical question, but would you, in particular, have a favorite aspect of this technology?
Well, I've got an aspect of the technology which I'm extremely proud of, participated to, which is the independence, which is our assessment system. The assessment of the world that we have is actually very nice, because when you got to understand that this is leading to no schedule. And that is a question that I had kind of overlooked. So regarding the difference with the Sims, and I told you, well, they manage with schedules and we don't exactly do this. Most of the AIs that you see on the market, on the market in game, okay, they are allocating a schedule to the NPC. So when your NPC is being created, it's over a 24-hour period. Is going to wake up, then is going to 1 hour real life time. After that, he's going to go in the field. He's going to be there for 4 hours. He will come back to the house. He can have complicated stuff. If it's the third day of the week, then he will go to the market. But basically, he has a schedule. And this is the reason that why a peasant which has just flown away because you've been killing 3 guys in front of his door, when he's coming back, the corpses of the 3 guys not being cold, he's going to go back to his field. This is the thing that he's going to do. He's going to go back to his schedule. We don't do that. We don't use a schedule per se. We have what we call a schedule, which is the original occupation for the first day of the life of the character, because he has a job. He needs to go work. Because he lives in such place, it takes him this time to go from home to work. Then he needs to feed, which will be taking him, in theory, that much time. Then he needs to go back to work, and then he needs to go back from work to home, and maybe after that he will have a social life and come back home. Okay? Something relatively simple in terms of schedule. We don't determine in what we would schedule here. We would say, well, he has to work a minimum of 4 hours per shift and 2 shifts in a day. Okay? Our AI is going to assess the starting parameters. So it's going to say, my guy is starting home because it's morning, or he's starting at work because it's morning, but he was from the night shift. So where is his starting point? What are the mandatory activities that he needs to stick during the day? And he's going to pretty much organize already his schedule around this. So we don't have a system, first things first, which is saying, well, 8 o'clock this, 9 o'clock this, blah, 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 blah. We have, this is a 24 hours day and he should do this. And well, if he does this, it must be after this one. Okay, it's rule-based. Now, this is a starting point. Because, of course, your presence and the fact that the game is running, that other NPCs are doing stuff, etc., is going to change things. It doesn't default back to a pre-organized schedule. He's going to try, of course, to stick with his current plan. So if his current plan is going to work from home, but you're in front of his door with a gun, he's going to stay home a bit, okay? And he's going to check on a regular basis if you're still there. And when the coast is clear, he's going to measure, well, sorry, it's been 3 hours late, I'm not going to show to work. That's the first difference. With a classic schedule, what he would do is, well, even if it's for 5 minutes on location, I'm going to go there. Rather than this, our characters have got parameter which we call work ethic. Okay, is the guy hard worker or not? Okay, is he going to go to work for these 5 minutes because he doesn't want to miss, or because he's 1 hour late already? Will he call it a day and do something else? And if yes, what? Okay, what depending upon his needs. So it can be, okay, I've got this other thing to do during my day. I'm going to do it right now because I can do it right now. Or maybe he's going to want to stick in something that would be leisure time, okay, based upon a number of center of interest, which are also in his parameters. So this is very different from a classic scheduling method. And this is one of the big interests of the tech, okay? And this is, from the game perspective, this means that not only you don't have the same population every time that you play, but even if you had the same population every time that you play, because your actions will be different, you would change the environment in a different way, and this would change the schedules of your NPCs in a different way. So anyway, you would not have the same behavior. We could easily demonstrate this by creating one standard population that you always play with. You would really have, in this case, different gameplay anyway. It will be less evident, but you would have a different gameplay anyway, because your actions would be different and because your NPCs in front of these actions would react differently rather than having a given schedule. And this is how we are telling you, well, you have 4 people that you need to kill, okay? You are going to collect information as to their schedule, as to their daily habits, okay? You're going to get it from a network of informants, which are the other NPCs, depending upon if they are okay to give, if they know the information, if they are okay to give you the information, or if they want to conceal the information from you. And you're going to know where the guy is living, where the guy is working, what are his working schedule, okay? But it doesn't make it, it's not because he has a working schedule which is saying, well, the guy is starting at 12, so at 12:01 you will be with him in order to lodge a bullet in his head. He might not be here because something might have been happening along the way that is going to change this. And in a normal scheduler, you would wait until he shows up, okay? Because you know that he's going to show up because he had this work thing in his schedule. But now, not sure. With Let's Kill Hitler, with the technology behind, you're not sure. You don't stay here waiting for the guy. You have to reactualize your information from informational sources because maybe the guy decided to call it a day and is walking in the park. Now, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. I would say that adds a whole other level of, well, I don't want to say realism because I don't want to give people the wrong idea, but the way the system is set up, you know, it's how the NPCs, how they interact with one another, how they, you know, they pair off and reproduce, how they have jobs and schedules, and they really sounds like people. Like it sounds like almost like real people. Again, I don't want to give the wrong idea here, but you know, it sounds like something you would see in like a real population.
Yeah, we are, as we discussed, we are not talking about real people, but we are. So you cannot imagine. We had the question, okay? We had the question from several VCs on that, which was okay. Let's imagine that I'm taking this technology and I'm using it, for an example, for transportation in a city. I'm modelizing a population based upon my statistical data. I'm putting these people in a replica of my city, and I'm trying to understand how do they go from point A to point B in order to tailor my bus system or whatsoever. And as much as I would love to answer this question by a yes in order to cash a huge check, we are answering no. This is not realistic, meaning that this is not a depiction, a possible depiction of the reality. These are credible people who are living their life in a complete bullshit imaginary world. And whatever they are doing has actually little importance per se. The important thing is that players are seeing from their own eye that they are doing different stuff. I don't care that my NPC, to which you've been blocking the way because you were shooting somebody in front of his door, I don't care that is going to the park or to the pub or to... What I care about is that it doesn't decide to go show to work for 5 minutes of presence, because this will not be credible. If you would observe this NPC and you would see him enter, walk the streets, enter his factory, put himself in his working position and wait there 5 minutes and go back home, nobody does that in real life, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So the base things to make it credible is to say, well, do something else, man. Go do something else, please. And something else, not random, because what you got to, one thing that I didn't mention, but which is also a big game changer when you're talking multiplayer, the whole system is deterministic. meaning that there is really a little randomness inside. So from a data transfer perspective, when you're multiplayer, okay, the way it works is one of the players is going to start the game. So he's the one who's going to generate the population. And the population is going to be transferred to the server, okay? So that's 200K of data. Population is being transferred to the server, and when you're going to join the multiplayer game, you're going to receive 200K of data. This is your population file. You're going to receive also a random number table. Okay, so the guy who is initiating the game is generating random throws, let's say, for the whole game. And this is being transmitted to every player. From then on, the only thing that is being transmitted between players through the server is basically what each player is doing, which are his actions. And here we are talking about a couple of bytes. Okay, really nothing. It's a twinkle. So you're going to send very little quantity of data to the server. Each player is going to send very little quantity of data, and each player is going to receive the moves from the other players. The population actions and reactions to the player's behavior and changes into their environment is 99.9% deterministic. So you will use a few of these random numbers that you've been receiving in order to manage the 0.01% of probabilistic that you have. This means that this is allowing us to maintain in sync 6 players. We authorize 6 players per game, because it's tailored like this. Okay? The gameplay is tailored like this. These 6 players are going to coordinate with almost no network exchange, but they can be ensured that the population simulation that they will have is exactly the same for each and every one of them. We are not in the do something else. Well, what? I don't know. Just roll a dice. Okay? That's we are in the you will do this instead of going to work because such reason. So yes, it's credible. Does that make it something that can be applied to real life modelization for real needs? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, actually, a lot of the things, I hear about, unfortunately, without having seen it myself, I kind of maybe sometimes I can get the wrong idea. But so I do appreciate you explaining it for me. Pointing out, maybe any misunderstandings I may have. So I really do appreciate that. All right. And I just want to ask, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that we've pretty much covered all interesting aspects. If anyone within your community has questions, well, guys, just ask them, and I'm sure that Mike will be very happy to relay it to us. Actually, this is something that we can organize, Mike. If some people within your community have questions, we can have another talk where in which we would answer these questions with great pleasure. But I think that we had a kind of a pretty comprehensive overview so far.
I think that would be a good idea. If we have enough questions, I would love to have a Q&A. I would love to have a Q&A session. This is actually been really fun for me to make. So really, it's been really fun talking about AI. Technology is something I'm quite passionate about. I haven't really delved so deep into the AI side too much besides one video I had made a few months ago. So it's something I'm very much interested in, even if I am a bit out of my league in regards to, all the goings on behind the scenes. But based on our conversation today, I've learned quite a lot, much more than I knew coming into this situation. And that's really why I like doing Coffee with Big Mike, because I get to meet people, get to talk with the people, and I get to walk away oftentimes, if not all the time, with more than what I came in with. So I really do appreciate that. I appreciate all the knowledge, not just about Let's Kill Hitler the game, but also about AI in general and computing and all the things you touched on here today. This has been one of the more enlightening conversations I've had here. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you very much to you, and it's always a pleasure to share these moments with you. And I really hope that we will have the ability. Yeah, Q&A is a very good idea, and I will be more than happy to have another coffee with you, Mike, on that.
All right. So thank you so much, Lawrence, for all your support and for joining us today. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls, thank you so much for joining us as well. Be sure to check out the Steam page at the link below. And be sure to wishlist it. Wishlisting games is a great way to support indie developers. Also, be sure to follow Let's Kill Hitler the Game on Twitter at the link below. Special thanks to Fran, who does a wonderful job of doing my art. She's back on Twitter, so please give her a follow. A special thanks to all of my friends on Twitter. I wouldn't be here without you all. And most importantly, a special thank you to all of you for watching. Please like this video if you liked it. Dislike it if you dislike it. Feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. And if you like my content, please subscribe and turn your notifications on. Until next time, fam, remember, just be yourself and you'll be awesome. Peace out!